Hey guys, good evening. I want to speak for a moment about a couple things here. I may do two videos, and I want to talk about a video I saw by a gentleman, Stephen Marshy, M-A-R-C-H-E. He talks about Civil War. He talks about is America on the path to Civil War. And people asked him a question asked him a question on an interview I thought was very interesting. They asked him about the difference between the '60s and civil rights era and all that, and the era of today. And we're talking about Civil War in a social manner, not in a physical. And I agree with him on his response, pretty much that it didn't even close to being the same thing, that there weren't as many people politically involved as we think, that came later. And that, my take from it is the fight now is about the issues that Republicans once used to divide America or divide, disaffect the white people in rural areas. Those issues are starting to lose power. We saw this with the abortion stuff. That the Roe back Roe versus Wade was not as popular as they once thought, and that's because the Republican Party is running off they're running off a playbook it's written 40, 50 years in the past. Society's moved on, and the things that they wanted back then aren't really desired now, and that was very interesting to see that for a lot of Republicans, it was a very muted response to that. In the 60s, I think the issue was about, poverty, war in Vietnam, civil rights, perceived communist infiltration, all those different things that were the Cold War that was going on. I forgot. That's the number one thing. And those were issues, and for some white people, maybe they just chose not to be racist anymore. The issue of people being politically aware and getting politically involved, that was an issue that was, they didn't lose power, but when you're privileged, any loss of power is a disadvantage. What we're talking about now in 2022 is that the Caucasian population is dying. That group, that rural subsistence population, is not promulgating. They're not having as many kids as they once did. That's a fact. And there's been talk with these midterms that Republicans did so poorly in, that a lot of the people that would have voted Republican, that would have been that oomph, that reserve, a lot of them died of COVID. That's sad to me, and I don't hear any Republicans talking about that. And I've talked about it before. The Washington State trooper that was talking about COVID and the vaccines, and he retired and wrote a book and came on there like, I'm going to write a book about all this stuff, and he died of COVID. He retired, he wouldn't get the shot. And no one on Fox News ever said anything. I've never said, hey, to his family, nobody said anything about that. He was just water under the bridge. I know that for Fox News and for Republican right, these are agitprops. These are pawns to be moved around at will. I get it. They don't care about these bumpkins out here. I get that. I totally get it. I thought that was sad that this man literally retired because of his belief on the vaccine and died of the disease that the vaccine may have saved him from. I don't know. He's talking. Subject. This is a very different time in that we're talking about a large number of Republican right Caucasians are dying, and I can show you that statistically. I can show you these areas that are Republican that did worse from COVID than other liberal areas. I can show you these facts. This isn't racism. This isn't about my opinion. That's the difference. And I think that what they're trying to do with gay marriage, interracial marriage, with abortion, I think that all of this is trying to get the horse back in the barn, and you can't do. You're locking the barn after the horse is gone. You can't do that. Once society gets a taste of these rights and these things, they're not gonna give it up. And so you see this with the midterms, that the abortion thing was a zero turnout. I mean, it was a negative turnout result. It was something they did that hurt them, and we should be happy about it to see that. I mean, that they're talking about their first day in Congress is gonna be reading the Constitution. No one cares about that, and how they're gonna just the head of Homeland Security needs to resign. They're gonna go after him, and they're gonna go after Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. This is what the Republican Party is focused on. Not inflation, not crime, not matters that affect 99% of people that I know and you know, but they are focused on going after their perceived political enemies. And I just to me, they have not learned from the midterms to let this stuff go and to use the bit of power you do have. They're losing, and the Civil War comes out of that. Is that we can't gerrymander like we used to. We can't use racial slurs, homophobic slurs we used to. So we don't have the division of the population we once had that we could play into. So we have to, talk about training bathrooms and things, the litter boxes in preschool. This is it. I think that this recent shooting in Colorado Springs, other shootings we've had, is as clear of a example of what an American Civil War would look like. I'll be careful what I say here, but I think that an American Civil War is one where you have more violence on marginalized classes. You have more violence on political targets, but I think that the war isn't on Congress and the government of the United States. The war is on the left, and the war is on aspects of the left that have won. One thing that I've been realizing over the last couple of years is that the Republican Party isn't really focused on coming up with good ideas to help people or to make the world a better place. Their point or their objective, their target, is to just make government not work properly. Any government, whether it's theirs or any government, it should not work properly. It should fail. And then they can say, "Oh, see, it failed," and not going to the point of, "Yeah, but we had people in there that were not qualified to be there." I think that this like I said, these shootings, recent violence, and I go back to the thing in Idaho a couple months ago where you had a guy, some bunch of guys got in a U-Haul, and they were going to a gay pride rally in a town out there, and they had riot gear and shields, and they all had face masks on. This is your Civil War. Like I said, they make it about patriotism and the patriots and all that. That's not what it is. Their Civil War is about carrying out attacks on targets that aren't really seen as negative anymore. See, they're pushing their morals on society, and what they're seeing is society doesn't want it, or excuse me, their values or their morals aren't as desired as maybe they once were back 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and they're angry. This is a very dangerous time. I think the Colorado Springs shooting was another reminder of just what the stakes are. To see not only the violence, but to see Republicans come out and say that they deserve this in essence. Seeing many people on the right basically, one lady coming out talking about how they're going to hell and all this stuff. And I talked about it, that who are you to judge anybody? I don't think that's your place. I think that's wrong. It's disrespectful to the families of those people. You didn't know them. And everybody walks a path, and everybody got struggles. And for you to judge a person murdered are living their truth. That to me, it's like Dr. Oz joking about Fetterman having a stroke. You know, just like, uh, just like, uh, just like Herschel Walker saying that Reverend Warnock had a hand in sexually abusing a boy 20 years ago at a campground. He might not even have been there. He might not even have been anywhere near there, and it was investigated. It's the same thing. They're just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks, and it's nasty and it's ugly because you're playing people's lives. And what's worse is you are justifying violence. Justifying violence. That's what this all is. You're morally justifying the violence against marginalized groups, that it's their fault. And I always talk about this. It's very important to realize white supremacy isn't always about the man with the gun. It isn't. All of them don't carry guns. White supremacy is sometimes the man in the suit who's minimizing, who's deflecting, who's shifting the blame. You see? What Malcolm X talk about? Them cameras, like, they'll make you think the person being hurt is the one doing the hurting or something. That's it. That's the point of it. Remember Buffalo and Sean Hannity was talking about how basically Tucker Carlson was talking about how basically it's going to continue happening because they're talking about racism and racism is making them do this. If that's true in a reasonable, rational society, that would mean we're on the right path. I don't want to be united with people that are willing to drive 200 miles across the state and kill innocent people. And you shouldn't either. Nothing moral about that. Nothing moral about violence against fellow citizens. I just want to make the point with all this patriotic crap that this stuff it isn't moral. There's nothing moral about it. This is about attacks on society. A society that they can't talk to anymore. And it's crazy because they keep doing things that further push people away. And they, you're literally going to go after the president's son, who's not in government, who isn't running for government. It's amazing that no one can see or understand that these are investigations taken just to blackmail, just to besmirch the character of the current president. I think that's ugly. I think it's wrong. That rather than you go against Joe Biden based on the merits of what he's done, go against Joe Biden for what you believe is wrong, and go against Joe Biden for his failings, you're choosing to go after his son and his family. And that's wrong. I never say anything like that about Trump. I never talked about his daughter, or I never talked about any of them people. I never did. My issue was always Trump, his moral failings, his to me, criminal negligence on COVID. But I don't want to know about his. To me, it's important to remember that this is what we're facing, and this is what civil war looks like. An unstable society, because they can no longer get their way by cheating the political process. For them, the next step is the way of the gun. Thank you for listening.